Singing a song about their lost home in Africa and about the escape from slavery. No matter that they're too poor to afford real instruments, they're playing their village anthem from the heart. This is Palenque. Villagers call it their corner of Africa in America. This anthem shows the whole country that what we have here is black power and that we're descendants of Africa, she says. The village anthem honors their hero, Bencos Bioho. He led the Colombian slave revolt and escape from the colonial port of Cartagena 400 years ago. Millions of Africans, especially from what is now Congo, Liberia and Senegal, were transported to Cartagena. But like the statue shows, Bencos snapped his chains and led dozens into the jungle hinterland to freedom. At 81, Basilio Perez says his mind gets cloudy when he tries to remember how many children and grandchildren he has. But he remembers the stories passed down through generations like it was yesterday. It was as difficult for the slaves to get here as it is to get from the earth to the moon. There were tigers, lions and snakes. It was terrifying to be in these jungles, he says. Slavery was abolished in Colombia 150 years ago. But nowadays, blacks and Indians rank among the poorest and most discriminated sectors of society, according to government and independent reports.
La raza negra no es libre.
The black race is not free. We're still oppressed, especially in terms of jobs and education. We have minimal rights, he says. Local legend tells how slave masters split up slaves from the same tribe to stop them communicating. The ploy failed, and today Palenque's inhabitants still speak a language experts say is a fusion of Bantu languages and Spanish. Teacher Sebastian Salgado said his parents were too ashamed to teach him the language at home, fearing he would be mocked by white Colombians. Instead, he learned in the village's dusty alleys. When Palenque loses its language, then Palenque loses its identity. If there's no language, we stop being the people of Palenque and the descendants of Africa, he says. Spanish masters also tried to ban the slaves' talking drums, but the drums have not fallen silent altogether. At 5 years old, Luis Alejandro has already learned to tap out a tune. His granddad, Jose Paito Valdez, is the local drum maker, a skill he says was handed down. I often used to watch my uncle making drums and it was etched in my mind, he says. As the afternoon heat subsides after a heavy tropical thunderstorm, youngsters get together for a jam session. These days, the drums are not for talking, but dancing. Village elders say some of the dancers' movements are a secret code from slave times to symbolize resistance against their masters. The rhythm may have mingled with more modern sounds of South America, but they can still hear the beat of an African home they've never known. Carl Penhall, CNN, Palenque, Colombia.
The southern part of the Chocó is the most populated, with the larger settlements located here, along huge rivers like the San Juan. The people survive mostly through collectives and small family enterprises. They are among the poorest in all of Latin America.
Seldom destroy the environment. So what they really want is respect. But with respect, they want education, they want health, and they want opportunities to work.
Having no alternative but to participate in the very activities that damage their communities, the blacks of the Chocó often feel like second-class citizens. Through community organization over the last 10 years, however, They have succeeded in getting basic land claims written into Colombia's constitution. But implementation is something else, and it may be decades before these people have any real control over their lives. Yelen Aguilar is a spokesman for the black community.
Nosotros nacimos aquí.
We were born here. We live here. And we have expended the same energy on building this country as anyone else. So saying we were brought over from Africa is a lot of bull, because we weren't born in Africa. We were born in Colombia, and we are Colombians like everyone else.
The black community now outnumbers the original natives by 10 to 1. They have more children. They don't live in the forest in the same way. And along with subsistence farming, run small extractive industries. Although there have always been tensions between the two communities, there's also been mutual help and intermarriage. Their joint resistance to invasion and industrialization was a major obstacle to earlier plans for the development of the Chocó. The peoples of the Chocó are considered the poorest in Colombia. 80% live with unsatisfied basic needs and suffer one of the highest infant and maternal mortality rates on earth. It's hard to imagine how they can resist offers that promise an easier life. But they call their largest organization El Proceso, the process, and they realize having a port or a factory is not enough in itself to make their lives better. Real development is a gradual process, over time, not a quick industrial fix.
We believe that this development effort isn't meant to involve us, the people and communities that live here on the Colombian Pacific. It's for certain sectors of the interior, the powerful economic and political sectors. And this in turn serves interests on the level of the global world economy. If you look at these large-scale projects, at the objectives of these projects, and at those who benefit from them, what do the communities established in the Chocó, the Indians, the mestizos, and the blacks get? Zero.
Oye, te hablo desde la prisión, Wilson Manyoma, Borbona. Cuatro esquinas, pero entre esquina y esquina siempre habrá lo mismo. Para mí no existe cielo, ni luna ni estrellas. Para mí no alumbra el sol, para mí todo es tiniebla. Ay, 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 que negro es mi destino. Ay, 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 todos de mí se alejan. Ay, 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 perdí toda esperanza. celda, donde no llegue el cariño.
Escuchen esto, ser de raza negra en Colombia reduce la probabilidad de que le llamen para una entrevista de trabajo. Un estudio de la Universidad de los Andes comprobó que en Bogotá el color de la piel es determinante a la hora de una contratación laboral.
Desde hace 13 años, Sandra dejó la costa pacífica colombiana de carencias y pobreza para buscar futuro en la capital colombiana. Luego de varias entrevistas de trabajo y pese a estar calificada, su nombre no fue tenido en cuenta.
Yo me capacito y yo sé que en algún momento ellos se van a dar cuenta que el color no tiene por qué importar, porque igual tengo capacidades para poder acceder a ese trabajo.
Exclusión y segregación laboral en empleos de atención al público y en el sector educativo, que para las organizaciones que trabajan por los derechos étnicos responde a una mala herencia del pasado esclavista español.
No formaba parte de la sociedad ni de los empleos de los españoles. Por tanto, se acostumbraron a discriminar, a excluir, a maltratar a la población afrocolombiana de piel negra. Y hoy esos prejuicios continúan en la mente de los empleadores.
Si una persona afrocolombiana quiere encontrar empleo en Bogotá, como mensajero, mesero, portero, vendedor o cualquier otro oficio que no requiera título de educación superior, tendrá un 8% menos de probabilidades de ser llamado a una entrevista que una persona de raza blanca.
La gente se empeña a discriminar a la gente de color y eso está muy mal. Porque es que todos somos iguales, todos somos seres humanos y todos tenemos la oportunidad de algún trabajo.
En una esquina de la fría Bogotá, mientras tanto Saúl ofrece en trozos el sabor del trópico. Las ventas ambulantes en los hombres y el trabajo doméstico en las mujeres son las únicas opciones laborales de gran parte del 1,5 millones de afrocolombianos que viven en esta ciudad.
Porque hay ignorancia para mí, ¿sí? Porque viéndolo bien, todo ser humano, blanco, negro, gringo, lo que sea, somos la misma cosa. Se muere uno y el mismo olor va a ser.
De acuerdo con organizaciones afrocolombianas, más allá del estudio, está claro que el Estado debe pagar una deuda histórica con su comunidad. Mientras esto se da, lo único cierto es que en Bogotá el color de la piel es un factor determinante para encontrar empleo.
Gobierno racista.
Vladimir Carrillo, Telesur, Bogotá, Colombia.
El candombe es una cultura traída al Uruguay, específicamente por aquellos esclavizados.
Vamos todos, hasta ahora, vamos a ver.
Hoy es patrimonio de la humanidad. Eso quiere decir que a través del tiempo logramos trascender.
Para mí el candombe es y ha sido un elemento de resistencia de la comunidad afro-uruguaya.
Es la conformación de distintos tambores, de distintos ritmos que armonizaron para formar el candombe. Era como un escape espiritual. A los negros esclavos no se les permitía su religión, su cultura. A través del tambor, digamos, se comunicaban. Las llamadas se llamaban, se hablaban.
El candombe trasciende el toque de los tambores y el baile en la calle.
Es una lucha dura, el racismo existe, el racismo institucional, como decimos nosotros, existe.
Es una lucha el poder incluir contenidos afro dentro de la currícula formal de la educación. La Casa de la Cultura Afro-Uruguaya. Este es un espacio que pretende ser un espacio de referencia y de pertenencia para el colectivo afro-uruguayo, pero para la sociedad en su conjunto.
Estratégicamente se ha tratado de invisibilizarnos, reducir nuestro papel en la historia a que fuimos los esclavos.
Yo en realidad me defino como activista. Sí, seguimos estando, a la dulce espera, claro. ¿Viste? Entonces también eso, ¿viste? Por más que... Mi familia es una de las familias que fueron desalojadas en la época de la dictadura, de lo que fue el conventillo de Ancina.
Y ese desarraigo, ese desalojo masivo que hubo, obviamente te causó un gran impacto que a título personal perdura hasta hoy.
El candombe es una forma de abrirnos puertas. El candombe es una forma de vida, una cosmovisión particular, una voz, un recuerdo.
El candombe es, para mí, lo que queda de esa reminiscencia africana en el Río de la Plata. El candombe era la cosa de los negros, la cosa underground, la cosa de abajo. Nadie pensó en algún momento que iba a tomar las dimensiones que ha tomado.
Y nos paramos siendo candombe, cantando candombe, sufriendo candombe, bailando candombe. Y ganamos el respeto de los otros. Y seducimos, abrimos puertas.
Hi, my name is Luke. So slavery isn't exactly racist towards any nationality, religion, or skin color anymore like it used to be, but it's still considered slavery. Slavery is a condition in which a person is forced to do something they do not want to do, such as an exhaustive labor or performing illegal acts. Slavery restricts the freedom of that person. Slavery in the past. In the early 1800s, Spain and Portugal was disputing over who owned Uruguay, and as that was going on, Argentina made multiple attempts to take over Uruguay, but the Uruguayans resisted all these countries' attempts to control them. So in 1830, they declared independence and were their own country. Their main economy in the 1700s and the 1800s was agriculture productions, which required lots of manual labor. This led to slavery all over South America, including Uruguay. Slaves were then brought to Uruguay from Africa. That was the start of slavery in Uruguay. Slaves were used to help on farms, for housework, or for any task given by their owner. They were used especially for planting and harvesting crops on fields, and slavery lasted for about 13 years after the Constitution in Uruguay was created, but slavery then ended in 1843. Slavery today. Slavery in Uruguay today is not the same as it used to be in the past. After laws were passed making slavery illegal, people who use slaves nowadays have to be very discreet about it. Slavery includes slave labor being forced upon children and some adults, including women, teenage girls being forced into prostitution. These people are forced into slave labor mainly because they are kidnapped and then put to work. They have no way to escape because they are locked up and don't know where they are. Women and girls are forced into prostitution and kidnapped and then used to be sold or auctioned off as sex slaves. Connections of slavery in Uruguay from past to today. Some connections would include forced labor and how slaves are bought and sold. The differences The differences nowadays is the people have to be kidnapped, normally a child or a woman, to keep them as a slave and force them to do work. But in the past, this was legal and everyone used slaves, so it was more normal and didn't involve breaking the law. And also in the past, slaves were traded frequently in public places, but now the buying and selling is done very secretly because it is a crime. Also, another connection is in the past, owners would often rape their female slaves because so they could be able to have a free slave, which would have no cost. But today, women are raped once they are kidnapped and put into prostitution. Would methods used in the past end slavery if we tried using them today? No, I do not think that methods would work today because in the past everyone had or used slaves and they were vital to running large farms and homes, and the slaves had to help with whatever work the owner needed to have done. The difference between today and the past, though, is that now there are laws which prohibit slavery. And also, people didn't need to hide slaves back then because it was legal and they had nothing to hide. But once slavery was banned, they enforced the law and owners had to free all their slaves. An example from the past would be a well-known plantation owner that owns hundreds of slaves, and everyone knows he owns all these slaves. So when the laws are passed, he has no choice but to free them. Otherwise, people could press charges. But to compare this to now, if a new law was passed about getting rid of slavery or human trafficking, well, it's already secret, and it's a big difference when criminals, I already know they're disobeying the law, which is in one place, but passing another new rule or law when the owners are and people that are bringing the slaves across borders.